All right, so section 2.9, inverses of functions. So notation really quick. So a normal function, okay, we label it f of x, right? So I'm just going to kind of write right here, f of x, which means a function whose name is f with x variables in it, okay? So the function is called f and it has x variables in it. We could call it h of x, so it's a function called h with x variables in it. We can call it f of t, so a function f with t variables in it, right? So we can call it whatever we want. But the normal function that we use is called f of x, okay? Now, we're going to be tasked to find the inverse of functions, okay? And there's a way to do that. I'll give you guys the steps. But when we find the inverse, we're going to give it a specific name, and it's going to look like this. Okay, it looks like f to the -1 power of x, but that's not what it means. I know most of the times that's what it's going to mean. But when you're using this type of notation, the -1 power is what denotes it, the inverse. Okay, so the way you read this is f inverse of x. Okay, so f inverse of x. Now finding the inverse usually is pretty easy. We can make it more difficult by giving you equations that are a little bit tougher. But it's usually pretty simple to do. It just requires a couple of steps. Okay? So I'm going to kind of do those with you guys as we do them. I'm going to list the steps that you guys have to do. Okay? So, but let me give you those steps first though. So how to find an inverse. Okay, so how to find an inverse. So we're looking for an inverse function. So step number 1, and this is going to seem kind of ridiculous, but write your function. Okay, so they're going to give you your problem, so you're going to want to write it if it's not already written for you already. I'm going to put right here, note. Usually f of x equals to something, okay? Usually it's given to you as f of x equals something. Not always, but a lot of times it's going to be given to you guys as f of x equals something. 2x plus 3, 1 over x plus 3, something, okay? But it's going to give it the name, okay? So write your function. So again, usually it will say f of x equals something. Step number 2, change f of x, or maybe it's h of x or g of x or whatever, change the function to y. Literally relabel it. Instead of f of x equals, let's say x plus 1, write y equals x plus 1. Okay, so you're going to change f of x to y. Step 3. So third step, what you guys are going to do is relabel x and y. Relabel x and y. And what that means is change x to y and y to x. You are literally going to look for your y value and change it to x, and you are literally going to get your x value and change it to y. Okay? And you'll see it once we do it. So you're going to change your x to y and your y to an x. You're going to relabel. Step 4, solve for y. I know it looks like a lot of work. Trust me, it's not. It's very quick stuff. The solving part is the part that takes the most time because it might be a complicated function. But step 4, solve for y. And then we're going to write f inverse of x instead of y. So it's 5 steps. Okay? So in the very beginning, you write out your function. Normally it says f of x equals to something. Second step, rewrite f of x to an actual y value. Okay? So it's not going to say y equals something. Now, change your x to y and your y to x, like magically. Just erase them and change them, okay? After you do that, step 4, the biggest step would be to solve for y. So move around your variables, your numbers, whatever you have to do so that you have your y set equal to another equation now. And then step 5, instead of it saying y equals, change it to f inverse of x equals, okay? So again, I know it sounds like it's a lot of work. It really isn't. Step 4 might be the one that's going to keep you the busiest, okay? So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and do some of these homework problems for you guys so you can try to get a lot of it out of the way. So here we go. Example number 1. All right, so we're going to find the inverse. Find the inverse. And here's the function that they gave us. Now I'm going to rename it to g of x, okay? Just to kind of make a point. It doesn't have to be f of x. It can be g of x, and it doesn't have to be f inverse of x. It could be g inverse of x, okay? Just that f of x is the most common function notation we use, so find the inverse. G of x equals to 2x minus 4. So, step 1 was to write the equation, right? There it is. I wrote it. Step 2, what am I supposed to do? All right, so change g of x to y. So y equals 2x minus 4. Good. Step 3, what am I supposed to do? Relabel. And what do I relabel? X to y and y to x. So notice, instead of y equals, I'm going to put x equals. Instead of 2x, I'm going to write 2y minus 4. I mean, would you agree with me so far? This is easy. I'm just kind of doing a couple little changes. No big deal, right? The next step is step 4. This is the one where the work happens. Solve for y again, okay? So I'm going to add 4 to both sides first. So I get x plus 4, let me move this up here, equal to 2y. And then to finish this problem, I have to divide everything by 2. So divide by 2. So I'm going to rewrite it. I know it's going to look a little, well, you know what? Let me do this. X plus 4 over 2 equals y. Oops, I'm sorry. I wrote y. Sorry. X plus 4 over 2 equals y. All right. Last step. Change your y to the inverse notation. I'm just going to flip my answer because I don't like it when it says something equals y. I want to say y equals something. So I'm going to change it. I'm going to write g inverse of x equals x plus 4 over 2. I just feel better when it looks like that. It looks nicer. Okay? Just like that. And you're done. That's how you find inverses. Okay? In order to find inverses, you need to write your equation, change your function notation to y, switch your x's and y's, solve for y, and then relabel it to an inverse notation. And that's it. Okay? So you have 8 of these to do. We just did one. Let's go ahead and do another one here. But before we do that, any questions on this first one? Just the process of going, rewriting, moving things around. So let's check out example 2. All right, so again, find the inverse. I'm going to do one that looks a little more challenging. Right? Always want to make sure I give you guys different looks. I don't want you guys to just go home with the easy stuff, right? and then I give you hard questions. I tell you guys about my youngest daughter's math teacher, right? How she kind of bugs me the way she does things. So I was helping her study yesterday because she has a test on this today, on finding inverses. What else is she doing? Proving that the inverses are inverses of each other, compositions of functions, all this other stuff. And as we're going through and studying all these hard, because she gave her a study guide, right? And there's like really tough problems. I'm like, man, these are hard. She's like, oh yeah, the teacher said that the ones from our quiz are going to be a lot easier. I'm like, so why is she making you guys sweat over all this stuff? Like, you're going to be so worried that you're going to do terrible on the test because you can't do these hard problems. And then she's going to give you a bunch of easy stuff. Like, you're going to go in there frightened, right? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, I really don't like this math teacher of yours. Like, she scares you into thinking you're going to do terrible. Like, that's not good. So again, the reason why I try to go over a lot of different types of examples for you guys, right? So hopefully you feel comfortable when you get home or as you're doing the homework. So anyway, this one looks a little different, right? It's a fraction. Most people don't like fractions. Step one, not rewrite, but f of x should be equal to something, right? I'm going to write it down. There it is. Step two, change my f of x to a y. So here you go. So again, it shouldn't be a hard step. We're just kind of rewriting it. Step three, change your x to y and your y to x. So x equals y minus 4 over 5. All right. Step 4, solve for y. How do I get rid of that division by 5? Multiply it, right? So let me get this, and I'm going to throw it over to that side by multiplying. Okay? I'm going to multiply that over. So that becomes 5x equals y minus 4. What should I do to both sides to get y by itself? Add 4, right? Yeah, add 4 to both sides. So here we go. We got 5x plus 4 equals y. I'm done. All I got to do is relabel, right? They want me to get my y value and relabel it as an inverse. Now, my original function was called f of x. So this is going to be f inverse of x is 5x plus 4. Now, just so you know, this one is considered like difficult, the one we just did. Okay? From all your homework. I'm going to do another one that's kind of like on the difficult side for you guys. All right? Then I'm going to do one that's so easy that it's actually hard. So, because a lot of people, they don't know what to do. They're like, this is too simple. I don't get it. Right? So here we go. We're going to do one again that's a little bit on the difficult side. And then we're going to do one that looks really difficult, but it really isn't. So h of x is equal to negative 3 minus 8/3 x. So just so you know, example 2 was a fraction. There's going to be 2 of those types. Example 1 was just kind of like a linear function, like 2x minus 4. There'll be 3 of those. Okay? There's 2 of these. All right? So I'm doing one. You're going to get to do one on your own as well. All right? And then there's one that's, like I said, looks really easy, but then people think it's really difficult because you're like, I don't trust my teacher. It can't be that easy, right? So people start to freak out. They don't know, like, am I doing it right? Like, so anyway, step 1, write your function. Got it. Step 2, change your h of x to y. So here we go. Y equals negative 3 minus 8/3 x. All right. Step 3, change y to x and x to y. So x equals negative 3 minus 8/3 x. I'm sorry, not 8/3 x, 8/3 y. All right. Step 4, solve for y. So Notice y is being multiplied by negative 8/3, and it's being subtracted in the front by 3, right? So let's get rid of that minus 3 first. Let's add it. So I get x plus 3 is equal to negative 8/3 y. Okay? Normally if I have a number multiplying a letter, if I want to get rid of it, don't I divide? Right? I divide. But did you guys learn, I mean you should have, but let's see if anybody remembers, did you learn another way of getting rid of a fraction in front of a variable besides division? One that involved multiplication? Anybody remember a skill like that? So if you have a fraction in front of a variable, to get rid of it without dividing, you multiply by its reciprocal. So flip it upside down. So I'm going to multiply by negative 3/8. Negative 3/8. Okay? Not by the opposite reciprocal. We're not doing perpendicular lines. Just by its reciprocal. Just flip it. Okay? Because what happens is the negative times a negative cancels out. And 8/3 times 3/8, what happens to that? If I multiply 8 times 3, I get 24, right? And if I multiply 3 times 8, I get 24. So the fraction is 24 over 24. What's 24 divided by 24? 1. So basically, that's gone. All that's left is your y. So if you multiply by your reciprocal, one of the fractions just completely disappears. Okay? Now on the left side, I have to distribute. Okay? I have to distribute this over. So this is negative 3/8 x minus 9/8. Because you multiply the big number to the numerator. So 3 times 3 is 9. Okay? Never multiply the big number with the denominator. All right? Unless you want to divide it. You can divide by the denominator. But most people multiply up. So 3 times 3 is 9. So 9 over 8. All right? We solve for y. So my last step, rewrite y as your inverse. So h inverse of x is negative 3/8 x minus 9/8. So remember, you have one more like this to do for homework. So I did one. You guys have one more. Okay, I did one full fraction. You'll have one of those. I did one normal linear function. You'll have two more of those. Okay. And I want to do one more example and I'll let you guys do this. It's just, maybe you're going to see this as simple and you have no problem doing it. But over the years, I've seen people get really stuck with this one. And then when they see me do it, they're like, oh, that actually was pretty easy. I'm like, yeah, it's just you're overthinking it, right? You're overthinking it. So here's the problem. F of x equals to x. Now just follow the rules and you should be fine, right? First step, write your problem. Done. Second step, change f of x to y. All right. Y equals x. Step 3, change y to x and x to y. So x equals y. All right. Fourth step, solve for y. It's already solved for y. I don't have to do anything, right? It says y equals x. It's just kind of backwards, but it says y equals x. All right. So I'm done. Fifth step, rewrite y as your inverse function. So I'm going to write f inverse of x is equal to x. And I'm done. That's it. But sometimes people they doubt that they did it right because they're like, I haven't done anything, right? I didn't do anything. I just rewrote and relabeled and everything was there and there you go. And I feel like I didn't do anything. So how can that be right? It's right. Okay? You did follow all the steps. You did everything you're supposed to do and you got your answer. right? So I'm going to give you guys your homework right now. You got 4 problems to do. We got 22, so 24 minutes. Okay, you should be able to get this done, right? And if you finish early and you haven't done your Alex, I know I repeat this every single day, do it. Okay, why wait?